That black widow was punished for taking in orphans, the townspeople whispered with cruel satisfaction, until a giant cowboy stepped from the shadows and declared, "We're raising them together." The seamstress had defied every warning, sheltering 3 abandoned children when decent folk turned away. They predicted her swift ruin, a young widow with no family, no money, destined to fail spectacularly. But the towering stranger who emerged from the wilderness carried secrets that could rewrite everything. His weathered hands held unexpected gentleness. His silence concealed devastating wealth, and his proposal would either save them all or destroy what little protection she'd built. Yet beneath their unlikely alliance lurked a conspiracy that reached the highest corridors of power, where corrupt men schemed to claim what was never theirs. Would their partnership survive the storm brewing against them? The winter wind howled through Silverbrook, Kansas, carrying whispers of judgment and scorn. Etta Mae Delaney pulled her threadbare shawl tighter as she walked past the general store. The conversation stopped. Eyes followed her every step. She had been a widow for 6 months now, 28 years old with calloused hands from endless sewing and mending. The townspeople watched her with suspicion, waiting for her to fail, to pack up and leave like they expected all outsiders to do. The storm struck on a Tuesday night in February. Snow piled against her cabin walls while she worked by candlelight, stitching a dress for Mrs. Henderson. The knock came just after midnight. 3 small figures huddled on her doorstep, shivering and hollow-eyed. Tommy stood tallest at 12, his arm wrapped protectively around 9-year-old Sarah. Little Ben, barely 6, clutched a torn piece of fabric that might have once been a blanket. Their clothes spoke of better days, now reduced to rags. Etta Mae opened her door wider. The children stumbled inside, drawn to the warmth of her small fireplace. She wrapped them in her only spare quilts and heated the last of her soup. The next morning brought Pastor Jerome to her door. His face carried the practiced disappointment of a man who delivered unwelcome news regularly. "Miss Delaney, those children cannot stay here. They have nowhere else to go. The church has limited resources. We cannot support every unfortunate situation that presents itself." His words carried weight beyond their surface meaning. Everyone in Silverbrook understood the unspoken rules. Etta Mae had already pushed boundaries by staying after her husband's death. Taking in orphans crossed lines the community would not tolerate. Pastor Jerome left without offering alternatives. The children watched from the window, understanding more than their young faces revealed. Within days, the consequences began. Mrs. Henderson canceled her dress order. The banker's wife found someone else to alter her Sunday clothes. One by one, Etta Mae's customers disappeared. Sarah proved intelligent beyond her years, reading from Etta Mae's few books with startling fluency. Tommy showed mechanical aptitude, fixing her broken sewing machine with intuitive skill. Ben drew pictures on scraps of paper, creating detailed scenes that suggested artistic training. These children came from education and privilege. Their speech patterns, their manners, their knowledge all pointed to backgrounds far removed from abandonment and poverty. Cornelius Blackwood arrived on a Thursday. His polished boots clicked across Etta Mae's wooden floor as he surveyed her modest home with calculating eyes. As the largest landowner in 3 counties, his word carried legal weight. "Miss Delaney, these children require proper supervision." "They have proper supervision. An unmarried woman with no family connections cannot provide what they need. I am prepared to take responsibility for their care." The offer sounded generous. Etta Mae had heard stories about Blackwood's ranch operations. Workers who started as temporary help and never earned enough to leave. Children who began as wards and aged into unpaid labor. "They stay with me." Blackwood's smile turned cold. "The territorial judge will be visiting next month. We will discuss this matter with proper legal authority." After he left, Etta Mae found herself staring at her dwindling food supplies. Her savings had lasted 6 months. Now, with 3 additional mouths to feed and no incoming work, she faced impossible mathematics. The first mysterious delivery appeared 2 days later. A bag of flour, dried beans, and salt pork sat by her door while she taught the children their letters. No note, no explanation. More supplies followed. Blankets appeared overnight. Medicine for Ben's persistent cough materialized when she stepped outside to gather firewood. Someone watched her routine, understood her needs, and provided help with invisible generosity. Edamie set traps and kept vigil, determined to identify her benefactor. The supplies arrived with supernatural stealth, always during the brief moments when she focused entirely on the children or stepped to the back of her property. The children thrived despite their circumstances. Color returned to their faces. Tommy's mechanical skills improved daily. Sarah devoured every book Edamie owned. Ben's drawings grew more detailed and confident, but Blackwood's threat loomed larger. Other townspeople began making pointed comments about proper child-rearing and community standards. The pressure built like storm clouds gathering strength. On a cold March evening, while teaching Ben to write his letters, Edamie glimpsed movement through her window. A massive figure retreated into the tree line, moving with surprising grace for someone of such enormous size. Her mysterious guardian stood nearly 7 feet tall, broad-shouldered and imposing. Even in silhouette, his presence commanded attention and respect. Edamie grabbed her husband's old rifle and stepped into the darkness. The figure had vanished, but fresh boot prints marked the snow. Size 14 at minimum, leading toward the wilderness beyond her property. Tomorrow she would have answers. If you are enjoying this story of how one woman's courage to protect orphan children will change an entire community forever, don't forget to comment where you are tuning in from to show how this story can connect us across any distances, backgrounds, and hearts. Because what will happen in the next 15 minutes in Silverbrook will completely change everything Edamie thought she knew about survival and unexpected allies. Edamie rose before dawn, positioning herself by the kitchen window with clear views of her property. The rifle rested across her lap as she waited for her mysterious benefactor to reveal himself. The giant emerged from the pine grove at first light. He moved with careful deliberation, carrying a wooden crate that looked small in his massive hands. Edamie stepped onto her porch, weapon raised. "Stop right there." The man froze. He stood nearly 7 feet tall with shoulders broad enough to fill doorways. His weathered face carried lines of grief and hard living, but his eyes held unexpected gentleness. "Ma'am, I mean no harm." "Then explain yourself." He set the crate down slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Name's Bo McFadden. Been watching over you and the young ones." "Why?" Bo's massive frame seemed to shrink as painful memories surfaced. "Lost my own family 3 years back. Wife Emma and little Lucy, both taken by cholera in one terrible week." Edamie kept the rifle steady but listened. "Been wandering since then, trying to find purpose. When I saw you take in those children, risking everything to protect them, it reminded me of Emma. She would have done the same." "That doesn't explain the supplies." Bo reached slowly into his coat pocket and withdrew a leather pouch heavy with gold coins. "My father struck it rich in the Colorado mines before he passed. Left me more money than I know what to do with." The revelation hit Edamie like physical force. This wandering giant possessed wealth beyond her imagination, yet he lived like a drifter and helped strangers in secret. "I have a proposition for you, Miss Delaney." Edamie lowered her weapon slightly. "I'm listening." "Marry me. Not for love or romance, but for protection. As your legal husband, I can provide financial security and social standing. You can raise those children without fear of Blackwood or his corrupt judge." The audacity of the proposal left Edamie speechless. Marriage to a complete stranger, even one who had helped her family, represented a leap of faith that terrified her. "You don't know me. I don't know you. I know you risked everything for 3 orphan children. I know you work your fingers raw to provide for them. I know you possess more courage than half the men in this territory." The children stirred inside the cabin. Tommy appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. When he saw Bo, his face lit with recognition. You're the one who brought the medicine when Ben was coughing. Bo knelt to the boy's level, his intimidating size transformed into gentle protection. How is your little brother feeling? Much better, thanks to you. Sarah and Ben joined Tommy on the porch. They showed no fear of the giant stranger, only curiosity and gratitude. Children possessed instincts about people that adults often ignored. These three trusted Bo completely. Think about my offer, Bo said to Etta Mee. I'll respect whatever boundaries you set. Separate living quarters, no expectations beyond protecting this family. Before Etta Mee could respond, Hoofbeats announced unwelcome visitors. Blackwood rode up with two companions, his face twisted with righteous anger. Miss Delaney, who is this man on your property? A friend offering assistance. Assistance from vagrant strangers raises serious questions about your judgment with children present. Bo rose to his full height, towering over Blackwood even while the man remained mounted. His presence commanded immediate respect and caution. Cornelius Blackwood, I presume, your reputation precedes you. And you are? Bo McFadden, formerly of the 3rd Colorado Cavalry. I served under Colonel Morrison during the Indian campaigns. The military credentials shifted the dynamic instantly. Even corrupt territorial judges respected war heroes and their connections. These children require proper supervision, Mr. McFadden. Miss Delaney lacks the resources and social standing necessary for their welfare. That situation may change very soon. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Miss Delaney has accepted my proposal of marriage. As her husband, I will ensure these children receive everything they need. Etta Mee's heart raced. She had not accepted anything, but Bo's declaration created protection she desperately needed. Blackwood could not argue against a military veteran with obvious financial means. When did this engagement occur? Just now, Etta Mee heard herself saying. Mr. McFadden has been courting me for several weeks. The lie came easily, born from desperation and maternal instinct. Blackwood's face darkened as his simple plan became complicated. Judge Morrison will want to verify this arrangement. Judge Morrison is welcome to review my military service record and financial statements. I assure you, everything is in order. After Blackwood left, muttering threats and promises of further investigation, Etta Mee faced her new reality. She had committed to marrying a stranger to protect 3 orphaned children. You didn't have to lie for me, Bo said quietly. Yes, I did. Those children need protection and you're offering the only solution that makes sense. So you accept. Etta Mee looked at Tommy, Sarah, and Ben watching from the porch. Their faces showed hope for the first time since arriving at her door. She thought of her late husband and the promises she had made about protecting the innocent. I accept your proposal, Mr. McFadden, but we do this properly, with clear expectations and mutual respect. Bo nodded solemnly. I wouldn't have it any other way, ma'am. The courthouse ceremony took place on a gray Thursday morning with only the children as witnesses. Judge Morrison performed the service with obvious reluctance, his disapproval radiating through every word. Etta Mee wore her best dress while Bo stood awkwardly in clothes that barely fit his massive frame. The marriage certificate carried legal weight that transformed everything instantly. Etta Mee McFadden possessed social standing that her maiden name could never provide. The children gained protection under the law that even Blackwood would struggle to challenge. Bo constructed a second cabin 50 yards from the main house within 3 days. His carpentry skills impressed Tommy, who watched every hammer stroke with fascination. The boy possessed natural mechanical aptitude that proper guidance could develop into genuine expertise. Can you teach me to build like that? Would be my pleasure, son. The word son carried weight that surprised both of them. Tommy beamed with pride while Bo realized how much he missed having a boy to mentor. Sarah discovered Bo's hidden library during his second week on the property. The wooden crate contained volumes of poetry, philosophy, and classic literature that revealed depths beyond his rough exterior. Emma had been a school teacher, and reading to her had become his greatest pleasure during their brief marriage. You have wonderful books. They belong to my late wife. She would want them read and appreciated. Sarah handled each volume with reverence. Her advanced reading skills suggested education far beyond what orphan children typically received. Questions about their background multiplied daily. Ben showed no fear of Bo's intimidating size. The youngest child climbed onto the giant's lap during evening meals, sharing drawings and stories with complete trust. Bo's gentle responses revealed a man transformed by fatherhood, even the unexpected kind. The community reaction split along predictable lines. Church ladies whispered about hasty marriages and improper arrangements. Working families with children of their own began defending Edomie's choices. The divide reflected deeper tensions about change and tradition in a frontier town. Mrs. Patterson approached Edomie at the general store 3 weeks after the wedding. Her own 4 children had befriended Tommy, Sarah, and Ben at the schoolhouse. "Your children are remarkable, Mrs. McFladden. Well-mannered, intelligent, and kind to the younger ones." "Thank you. They're adjusting well to their new home." "Where did they come from originally?" The question everyone asked but few voiced directly. Edomie had no good answers. The children remembered fragments of their past but nothing concrete about family or origins. They were abandoned at the church during the winter storm. Everything before that remains unclear. Mrs. Patterson nodded sympathetically, but her eyes held curiosity that others surely shared. Blackwood's harassment escalated gradually. He filed complaints about property boundaries and livestock regulations. His men rode past the McFadden property at all hours, creating an atmosphere of intimidation and surveillance. The territorial judge arrived in April with official paperwork and serious accusations. Judge Morrison carried himself with the authority of federal appointment, but his loyalties clearly aligned with local power structures. "Mr. McFadden, questions have been raised about the legitimacy of this marriage and the welfare of the children involved." "What kind of questions?" "Whether this arrangement serves the children's best interests or merely provides convenience for the adults involved." Bo's military bearing never wavered under pressure. Years of commanding men in dangerous situations had prepared him for challenges to his authority. "Judge, my wife and I provide these children with food, shelter, education, and love. Their welfare improves daily under our care. Mr. Blackwood suggests they might benefit from more structured supervision. Mr. Blackwood's suggestions serve his interests, not theirs." The verbal sparring continued for an hour. Judge Morrison probed for weaknesses in their story, while Bo deflected every challenge with patient determination. Edomie watched her husband protect their family with skills she was only beginning to understand. After the judge left, Bo revealed disturbing intelligence from his military contacts. Someone had been making inquiries about the children through official channels. Questions about their identities, backgrounds, and potential inheritance rights. Inheritance rights? Children don't get abandoned accidentally, Edomie, especially not children with their education and manners. Someone wanted them gone for specific reasons. The implications chilled her. If the children possessed inheritance claims, their abandonment became calculated crime rather than tragic circumstances. Strange men began appearing in Silverbrook, asking questions about newcomers and recent arrivals. They claimed to represent various territorial agencies, but their credentials seemed questionable. Bo's suspicions grew stronger. "We need to be very careful. This situation involves more than we originally understood." Edomie found herself falling in love with her husband of convenience. His gentleness with the children, his quiet strength during conflicts, and his unwavering commitment to their family created feelings she had not expected. Bo struggled with similar emotions. Edomie's fierce protectiveness, her intelligence under pressure, and her natural grace reminded him that his heart could love again after devastating loss. The children sensed the growing affection between their guardian parents. Tommy began calling them Mama and Papa without prompting. Sarah and Ben followed his example naturally. One evening in late April, Judge Morrison returned with federal paperwork and grim determination. Blackwood accompanied him with obvious satisfaction. "Mrs. McFadden, I am here to inform you that custody proceedings will begin next week. The territorial court will determine whether these children remain in your care or transfer to more appropriate guardianship." The legal battle they had dreaded was finally beginning. Bo's military connections proved invaluable within hours of Judge Morrison's threat. Colonel Hayes, his former commanding officer, arrived from Denver with federal documentation that changed everything. The children's father was decorated war hero Captain William Thornton, died in a ranch accident 18 months ago, leaving substantial property to his 3 offspring. The revelation struck like lightning. Tommy, Sarah, and Ben Thornton possessed legal claim to 2,000 acres of prime Colorado territory, awarded through federal land grants for their father's military service. Where's the mother? Died in childbirth when Ben was born. Captain Thornton raised them alone with help from his sister until the accident. Colonel Hayes spread official documents across Etta Mee's kitchen table. Property deeds, military service records, and inheritance papers painted a clear picture of calculated theft. Someone orchestrated their disappearance to claim the land illegally. The children were supposed to vanish permanently. Etta Mee studied the documents with growing horror. The 3 frightened children who appeared at her door had been deliberately abandoned by people who knew their true value. Blackwood knew all along. More than knew. He orchestrated everything through intermediaries and forged paperwork. Your husband's investigation triggered federal attention that exposed the entire conspiracy. Bo's contacts in territorial government had uncovered a network of corruption spanning multiple counties. Judge Morrison received regular payments to approve questionable land transfers. Several prominent ranchers had acquired property through similar schemes involving missing heirs. How did the children end up here? Blackwood's men were supposed to abandon them somewhere they'd never be found. Instead, they left them at the church during the storm, probably hoping they'd freeze to death. The cold calculation behind their abandonment made Etta Mee's blood boil. 3 innocent children treated as obstacles to eliminate rather than human beings deserving protection. The children absorbed the news about their true identity with remarkable maturity. Tommy remembered more details about their father once prompted. Sarah recalled their house and the extensive library that had fostered her love of reading. Ben drew pictures of places from his early childhood with startling accuracy. "Do we have to leave Mama and Papa Bo?" Ben's question voiced all their fears. Learning about their inheritance meant nothing compared to losing the family they had found. "Nobody's taking you anywhere," Etta Mee promised. "We'll fight for you no matter what it takes." Colonel Hayes brought additional reinforcements. Federal marshals arrived to investigate the land fraud conspiracy. Territorial authorities replaced Judge Morrison with a federal appointee who owed no favors to local power brokers. Blackwood's desperation grew obvious as his carefully constructed schemes unraveled. He increased pressure on townspeople who supported the McFadden family. His men harassed merchants who served Etta Mee. Property damage and intimidation tactics escalated daily. The new federal judge, Harrison Webb, possessed an impeccable reputation for fairness and integrity. His arrival shifted the legal landscape dramatically in favor of justice over corruption. Mr. Blackwood's petition for custody becomes quite interesting when examined alongside these inheritance documents. Judge Webb studied the evidence with methodical precision. Blackwood's supposed concern for the children's welfare appeared transparently fraudulent when their true value became known. The timing of his custody request coincides exactly with the land grant filing deadlines. Remarkable coincidence. The federal investigation expanded to include Blackwood's business associates and political connections. Several prominent citizens faced questions about their recent property acquisitions and relationship to missing heirs. Etta Mee watched her husband coordinate with federal authorities like the military officer he had been. Bo's organizational skills and strategic thinking impressed investigators who relied on his local knowledge and connections. "You were a fine soldier, McFadden. Your country owes you gratitude for exposing this corruption." "Just protecting my family, sir." The simple statement carried profound meaning. Bo had found his purpose again through defending the children and supporting Edami. His grief-driven wandering had ended in newfound mission and belonging. Community support for the McFadden family solidified as townspeople understood the true situation. Parents who had watched their own children befriend Tommy, Sarah, and Ben rallied to their defense. Mrs. Patterson organized a petition supporting Edami's custody. Over 60 families signed despite pressure from Blackwood's supporters. The document demonstrated genuine grassroots backing for the children's current placement. "Those children have thrived under Mrs. McFadden's care. They're happy, healthy, and well-educated. No court should separate a loving family." The custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. Judge Webb would review all evidence and make final determination about the children's future. The entire town planned to attend what had become the most significant legal proceeding in Silverbrook's history. Blackwood made one final desperate attempt to salvage his schemes. He approached Bo directly with an offer of partnership rather than confrontation. "We could share the land profits, enough wealth for everyone involved. Those children aren't for sale at any price." "You're making a serious mistake, McFadden. I have powerful friends who don't forget enemies." "Neither do I." The threat carried no weight against a man who had faced Confederate artillery and Cheyenne war parties. Blackwood's intimidation tactics meant nothing to someone who had already lost everything once and rebuilt his life around protecting others. The night before the hearing, Edami found herself more nervous about the children's testimony than the legal arguments. Tommy, Sarah, and Ben would speak for themselves about where they wanted to live and who they considered family. Their answers would determine everything. The courthouse overflowed on Monday morning with citizens from 3 counties. Every seat filled while dozens more stood along the walls. Judge Webb commanded immediate respect as he reviewed the mountain of evidence spread across his bench. Blackwood entered with 2 expensive lawyers from Kansas City. His confident demeanor masked growing desperation as federal marshals took positions throughout the courtroom. The corruption investigation had reached levels that threatened his entire empire. Edami sat beside Bo at the plaintiff's table, her hand trembling slightly as she watched the children take seats in the front row. Tommy wore his best shirt while Sarah had braided her hair carefully. Ben clutched a small wooden horse that Bo had carved for him. Judge Webb began with a summary of the evidence. He outlined the inheritance fraud conspiracy with methodical precision, connecting Blackwood's custody petition to the illegal land grab scheme. The courtroom murmured as the full scope of the corruption became clear. "Mr. Blackwood, your sudden concern for these children coincides remarkably with filing deadlines for their inheritance claim. Please explain this timing." Blackwood's lead attorney objected repeatedly, but Judge Webb pressed forward with uncomfortable questions. The federal judge possessed authority that local corruption could not influence or intimidate. "Your Honor, my client has always prioritized child welfare above personal considerations." "Indeed. Yet records show Mr. Blackwood inquired about the Thornton property 6 months before expressing interest in the children's custody." The contradiction hung in the courtroom air like smoke. Spectators shifted uncomfortably as they realized how thoroughly they had been manipulated by a man they had trusted with community leadership. Colonel Hayes testified about the federal investigation, presenting documented evidence of forged papers and illegal land transfers. His military bearing and unimpeachable credentials lent weight to accusations that might otherwise seem fantastical. Captain Thornton's children were deliberately targeted for elimination, so Mr. Blackwood could claim their inheritance through fraudulent documentation. The word elimination sent chills through the packed courtroom. 3 small children had nearly died, so one man could steal their birthright. Mrs. Patterson took the stand next, representing the community petition supporting Edami's custody. Her testimony carried the authority of a respected mother, whose own children had benefited from the Thornton siblings' friendship. Those children have transformed under Mrs. McFadden's care. They were frightened and traumatized when they arrived. Now they're confident, happy, and thriving in school. How do they interact with other children? Tommy helps younger students with their lessons. Sarah organizes reading circles for the girls. Ben shares his artistic talents freely. They're natural leaders who bring out the best in others. The parade of supporting witnesses continued for 2 hours. Teachers, shopkeepers, and neighboring families testified to the children's positive influence and obvious happiness in their current home. Bo's testimony focused on practical matters of provision and protection. He outlined the financial security he could provide, his military pension and inheritance creating stability most families could never offer. Judge Webb, these children need more than money. They need love, guidance, and the security of knowing they belong somewhere permanently. How has marriage changed your perspective on family? My first wife and daughter died before I could fully appreciate the gift of family. These children and my wife have given me a second chance to be the father and husband I was meant to be. The courtroom fell silent during Bo's emotional testimony. His visible transformation from grief-stricken wanderer to devoted family man impressed even skeptical observers. Etta Mee's moment came after lunch. She faced the packed courtroom with quiet dignity, her voice steady despite the enormous stakes. Your Honor, I didn't seek to become a mother to 3 children, but when they needed help, turning them away was never an option. What makes you qualified to raise children of such substantial inheritance? I'm not raising them for their money. I'm raising them because they deserve love, education, and the chance to become the remarkable adults I can already see in them. Judge Webb questioned her about discipline, education plans, and long-term goals for each child. Etta Mee answered with specificity that demonstrated deep knowledge of their individual personalities and needs. Tommy wants to study engineering. Sarah dreams of becoming a teacher like her father's sister. Ben shows artistic talent that proper instruction could develop. I want them to pursue their gifts freely. The children's testimony provided the emotional climax everyone anticipated. Judge Webb questioned them individually, his gentle manner encouraging honest responses. Tommy spoke first, his 12-year-old voice carrying surprising authority. Sir, Mama Etta and Papa Bo saved our lives. They gave us a home when nobody else would help. Do you understand you have significant inheritance rights? Yes, sir, but money doesn't make a family. Love makes a family. Sarah's testimony brought tears to several spectators. Before we came to Mama Etta, I thought we'd never be safe again. Now I know what home feels like. Ben's simple declaration cut through all legal complexity. I want to stay with my mama and papa forever. Judge Webb called for closing arguments as afternoon shadows lengthened. Blackwood's lawyers made desperate appeals about proper supervision and community standing, but their words rang hollow against the children's clear preferences. Federal prosecutor Samuel Mitchell delivered the final statement with devastating precision. Your Honor, this case represents a choice between love and greed, between justice and corruption, between protecting children and exploiting them. The courtroom held its breath as Judge Webb prepared his verdict. Judge Webb rose from his bench as silence blanketed the packed courtroom. His weathered face revealed nothing as he surveyed the crowd before delivering his verdict. In the matter of custody for Thomas, Sarah, and Benjamin Thornton, this court finds overwhelming evidence of Mr. Blackwood's fraudulent conspiracy to steal their rightful inheritance. Blackwood's face drained of color. His expensive lawyers shuffled papers frantically, knowing their case had collapsed completely. Furthermore, the children have clearly expressed their desire to remain with Mr. and Mrs. McFadden, who have provided exemplary care despite difficult circumstances. Etta Mee gripped Bo's hand as tears filled her eyes. The children sat forward in their seats, holding their breath. Custody is hereby awarded permanently to Bo and Etta Mee McFadden. The Thornton inheritance will be managed through federal trust until the children reach majority age. The courtroom erupted in celebration. Mrs. Patterson led the applause while dozens of supporters cheered the victory of justice over corruption. Tommy, Sarah, and Ben rushed to embrace their parents as the legal battle finally ended. Judge Webb continued over the noise. "Mr. Blackwood, you will face federal charges for fraud, conspiracy, and child endangerment. Your property holdings are frozen pending complete investigation." Federal marshals approached Blackwood's table with arrest warrants. The man who had terrorized the community for years looked suddenly old and powerless as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The celebration moved from courthouse to Main Street as townspeople surrounded the McFadden family with congratulations and support. Children who had befriended Tommy, Sarah, and Ben danced around them with pure joy. Pastor Jerome approached Etta Mee with obvious shame coloring his features. The same man who had refused help during the winter storm now sought forgiveness. "Mrs. McFadden, I owe you an apology. I let fear and prejudice cloud my Christian duty. Pastor, we all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them." Her gracious response impressed observers who might have held grudges for such treatment. Etta Mee's character had been tested by fire and proven unshakable. Colonel Hayes presented official documentation transferring the Thornton property to federal trust management. The 2,000 acres would generate substantial income for the children's education and future needs. The land includes mineral rights and water access. Your children will never want for anything. They already have everything they need, Bo replied. Love, security, and family. The months that followed brought remarkable transformation to both the McFadden household and Silverbrook itself. Tommy's mechanical aptitude flourished under Bo's guidance as they built improvements to their expanding property. Sarah established a lending library using books purchased with trust fund money. Children throughout the county benefited from her passion for reading and education. Her dream of becoming a teacher grew stronger daily. Ben's artistic talents attracted attention from traveling merchants who commissioned drawings of local landmarks. His detailed sketches captured the beauty of frontier life with remarkable skill for someone so young. Etta Mee discovered pregnancy 4 months after the custody hearing. The news filled their home with additional joy as their chosen family prepared to welcome a biological addition. Will the baby call Tommy, Sarah, and Ben brother and sister? Of course, family isn't about blood, it's about commitment and love. The community's attitude toward the McFadden family evolved completely. Etta Mee found herself consulted on matters of child welfare and education. Her reputation for wisdom and compassion spread throughout the territory. Bo used his military connections to establish a school that welcomed children regardless of background or social standing. The institution honored his late wife Emma's memory while providing opportunities for frontier families. Blackwood's trial in federal court resulted in a 20-year prison sentence for conspiracy and fraud. His property was liquidated to compensate victims of his various schemes. Justice moved slowly but arrived eventually. Judge Morrison fled the territory before corruption charges could be filed. His replacement proved honest and committed to equal treatment under law for all citizens. 1 year after the custody hearing, the McFadden family gathered for Sunday dinner in their expanded home. Baby Emma, named for Bo's first wife, gurgled happily in her father's massive arms while the older children shared stories of their school week. Tommy announced his acceptance to engineering program in Denver. The trust fund would cover all expenses while he pursued the education his father would have wanted. Sarah received appointment as assistant teacher at the new school. Her natural gifts for instruction and love of learning made her invaluable to the educational mission. Ben's artwork earned commission from Territorial Governor's office. His paintings of frontier life would hang in the Capitol building, showcasing talent nurtured by family love. Etta Mee reflected on the journey from desperate widow to respected matriarch. The scared woman who had opened her door to 3 frozen children could never have imagined such transformation. What are you thinking about? How much can change when people choose love over fear? Bo smiled as he watched their children play in the evening light. His own journey from grief-stricken wanderer to devoted father and husband proved that second chances could create miracles. The McFladden family had grown beyond their wildest dreams, but the foundation remained unchanged. Love, commitment, and willingness to sacrifice for others had created something beautiful from desperate circumstances. Their story became legend throughout the territory, inspiring other families to open their hearts to children in need. The legacy of 3 orphans and the widow who saved them continued growing with each passing year.